Hi, I'm Duncan Walker. Nice to see you all. I'm the founder and chief executive of Skyports. It's easy in a hall like this to think that the vehicles are the most exciting part of the advanced air and mobility network. Let me tell you, they're not. Infrastructure is by far the most exciting and sexy part of this whole industry. Thank you, Damien. We're going to talk a little bit about the infrastructure piece of the equation. Something we've been doing now for 5 years. We are super focused on making it a reality. If I reflect back on the number of air shows I've been to over the last 5 or 6 years, it used to be sort of one mock-up of a model of an OEM in the corner, and fast forward 4 or 5 years, and we're here with half a hall. My guess is in the next 2 years we'll be in a hall of our own, which is super exciting. We're seeing real momentum. And the opportunity for infrastructure, we believe, is at least as big as the opportunity faced by the OEMs, vehicle manufacturers out there. Something we're trying to capitalize on. To make it real, you've got to build it. We tend, although this is a PowerPoint presentation, to avoid PowerPoint presentations and do things in real life. We will talk about them in a little bit more detail. It's a huge, huge market, the whole advanced air mobility market. We focus a lot on passenger transportation, but actually I think cargo transportation is as big a part of the network and the opportunity that we're facing here. I think it's a great demand leveler. It's going to really help the economics of the overall ecosystem. We are out there doing real things. Damien's going to talk about the 4 or 5 vertiports we already have live. We have a number in the pipeline ready to go. And the long lead time is the vehicle certification. It's super exciting to see the vehicles here, a number of which are flying already. Until they get certified, this industry is going to be in its formative years, but we are now not far away. Volocopter very publicly talking about 2024, that's only 12 months away. Joby and others also ready in a very similar timeline, which we're very excited about. It is critical. I think we see a lot of the OEMs coming through the certification program. If you read the SPAC documents and the SEC filings that a number have put in, I recommend you don't. They're really boring. But if you get into them, we are not trying to replace the existing helicopter market. The existing helicopter market is for a rich few people. There is very little access to city centers with helicopters in most places around the world. This is about electrification of aircraft. What that does is allow quiet, very safe access to city centers. If that can generate volume, which we very much believe it can, the price point will come down very rapidly and be a meaningful form of transportation for everybody in this room, not the super rich. I find this slide really interesting for purely Machiavellian reasons as well as altruistic ones about the market. There has been a huge ton of money that has gone into the sector. That's awesome because the sector needs a huge ton of money to get up and flying. Vehicle manufacturers have raised in excess of 10 billion over the last 24 months, largely through the SPAC markets, but also in the private markets. Common agreement is it costs around $1 billion to certify a vehicle. It's really hard, rightfully it's really hard. It's kind of a binary bet. Once you've spent your first dollar on vehicle certification, you have committed to your billionth dollar on vehicle certification, because that journey is one that you can't jump off, or if you do jump off, you jump into a big void you don't want to be in. What we haven't seen yet is much money coming into the enabling ecosystem. That is infrastructure, which we're interested in. It's also technology, maintenance, repair, pilot training. And without significant investment into that part of the ecosystem, we aren't going to see an advanced air mobility network and an opportunity that is anything near its potential. So our strong belief is that we're going to see material capital coming into the sector over the next 2 or 3 years, which will enable the growth of the overall market. Of that infrastructure money, less than $50 million, the majority has come to us. But like the OEMs, and it's great we see loads of OEMs here, we're going to need lots of infrastructure providers, because this isn't a market there that there's going to be one winner. Not only is there not going to be one winner, there is not going to be one winner in terms of cities. We deliberately have a bit of a broad approach to cities. One of the absolute fundamentals for us in any place around the world is government commitment to launching advanced air mobility. Without that government commitment, you do not get anywhere near the momentum you need. We've put people in each of these markets. It's very important to have people in market if you're going to do anything meaningful. And have those relationships with the governments, with the cities, trying to identify what the problems they are solving, which are individual in every circumstance. We're going to talk a little bit about where we're really excited about. I'll give you a bit of a spoiler. Centrally controlled governments, like the Middle East, where they have very, very well coordinated divisions within government departments, will win the race to advanced air mobility. So those kind of places where there is control between the planning authority, the aviation authority, the land authority, the electrification teams, all of the utility providers, they can solve lots of complex challenges in one place. Devolved power in London, Paris, Los Angeles will get there. The market opportunity is huge, so it will happen. But the speed at which they can operate is significantly slower than other places around the world. When we're thinking about timing, you can see, this industry is becoming increasingly real. I remember having similar presentations 2 years ago, and it was, believe us guys, it's going to happen. I think we've seen now the acceptance that it is going to happen, and the reality of it happening, and the capital that's come into the sector, and the momentum with the regulators that will allow it to happen. Infrastructure is really hard because there's a very long lead time. So we work very, very closely with the cities, but also with the OEMs to identify where they want to be, when they want to be there, and how we can manage the very significant capital outlays that are required to make sure that there is a network of infrastructure at the point which the OEMs need it, not before and certainly not after. What does that require? That requires very, very good relationships across the stack. Everything we design and build is vehicle agnostic. This is a vertiport which Damien will talk about in Marina, California, which is Joby's production and manufacturing facility. Even there, what we have designed, in line with Joby's requirements as well, can accommodate all different vehicle manufacturers. That is the only way airports work. You need to be able to land an Airbus, you need to be able to land a Boeing, you need to be able to land an Embraer, you need to be able to land a cargo vehicle, you need to be able to land the next generation of vehicles, you need to be able to land an autonomous whisk. We very much focus on all of these. To do that, we need broad and wide relationships with our OEM partners, and we spend a lot of time in their warehouses, in their headquarters, working with them on the market launch. There is a common misconception that infrastructure is easy. Let me tell you it's not, and the breadth of skill sets required to execute on it is very, very wide. People often focus on terminal when talking about infrastructure. A terminal is near irrelevant to your vertiport. In fact, it could equally happen in good weather environments. You don't need a terminal at all. It is all about airspace integration, electrification, availability of land, efficient and safe operations. So we have a team of 100 people in the UK, Singapore, US, and other places around the world, working very closely with cities, very closely with OEMs to make this a reality. Regs is a key part of the package. We somewhat altruistically and somewhat for our own purposes make sure we are at the forefront of the regulations with the EASA, with the Eurokai, with the FAA, with JCAB, CAAS, to have that commonality which leads to safety and repeatability around the world. So that's a bit of the theory. My colleague Damien is going to talk to you about what we're doing in real life around the world now to make this a reality.
Awesome. Right. Yeah. So, I'll start with a brief anecdote. When I joined Skyports in 2019, late 2018, Duncan told me that he wants to see action over talk, that Skyports is a company that talks the talk but walks the walk. And so I think at the end of my first week, I came to him and said, I need 1.5 million euros to build a vertiport in Singapore with zero return on investment, but a huge opportunity to, for the first time, demonstrate to the world what vertiport is, build a very solid relationship with one of our most important partners, Volocopter, with the government authorities in Singapore, and et cetera, et cetera. And so the response was, let's do it. In 2019, we built Vertiport in Singapore in partnership with Volocopter. It was a great experience in terms of making very expensive mistakes, but hopefully not doing them again. And that's really the story that Duncan sort of mentioned. The Skyport's company learns by doing. When you design a PowerPoint or you design a conceptual vertiport, it works on paper, but when you actually bring it to reality, you find out that the things you plan don't really turn out as you want them to be. So in Singapore, Volocopter also carried I think it was the first very urban flight over Marina Bay. We hosted several thousand people at the Vertiport and took a lot of learnings from it into our future design iterations.
That was, by the way, 70% of our Series A capital, which you burnt in a week there.
In a week, yeah. I mean, but it worked, right? This industry is a huge risk. It's a big bet. It's not easy, both, as Duncan said, on the infrastructure side, but also and mainly on certifying electric aircraft. And the only way to make meaningful progress is by taking those calculated risks and really trying to push the industry forward. In 2019, we decided to acquire a heliport in London, one of 2 operational heliports in London, to secure an existing landing site in London. It's been mentioned many times, it's very, very hard to find suitable locations in city centers. And heliports, albeit are operational today, it's not very obvious, or it doesn't come as for granted that they will be able to handle eVTOL. So what we're doing there is trying to figure out what it actually takes to convert heliports into vertiports, both from regulatory side, but also in terms of the provisions and upgrades that we need to do to be able to service eVTOL aircraft effectively. In 2022, again, it's been mentioned before, we partnered with Joby to develop a living lab at the Marina facility in California. So it's currently there being used pretty much every single day for testing mainly the passenger journey and how can we optimize the experience for the passengers, both from a digital perspective, so how do the physical and digital worlds interact, and then how the vertiport and the aircraft interact in terms of making the passenger journey as efficient and as safe as possible. In 2023, we partnered with, a while ago we partnered with Group ADP, but in 2023 we launched our permanent testbed facility in Pontoise with Group ADP. As I said, it's a permanent facility. It's being used for operational testing of the passenger terminal. There's been a number of test flights carried out by Volocopter. It is open to anyone. I think Joyce already mentioned there's, I think, over 35 partners, technology partners, OEMs, regulators that are involved in the project. And it's really to make sure that in 2024, the Parisian ecosystem is ready to launch commercial operations during the Olympics. So this gives you a brief aerial of the testbed just outside of Paris. It's effectively a scaled-down vertiport. It has all of the key components of an operational vertiport. It's got a FATO, taxiways, stand, a passenger terminal. It is built at an operational airfield. So it's been mentioned, it's hard to do stuff at real operational airports as you're dealing with live traffic. But it also makes you do everything properly and right. So there's been a huge amount of procedural work that we had to do to make sure that we can actually build the vertiport and then operate it safely within the existing operational environment. Just to give you brief insights into the terminal, again, it's a scaled-down version. It's about 100 square meters. It contains all of the key touch points that a real operational vertiport will have for the passenger. It was designed with a zero-weight principle. So we don't believe that passengers will loiter or dwell for a long time at the vertiports. The whole purpose of this industry is to save people time. And so every time we think about terminal design, we carry these three principles in mind. So creating minimal experience, or sort of process, deploying technology where it makes sense, to make sure that the journey is automated, that we don't over-rely on human capital, but we can make the passenger journey as touchless or smooth as possible. And of course, relying on passengers' mobile devices. A lot of the pre-departure checks and check-ins can be done online before the passenger arrives at the vertiport. So when they actually arrive, we just check that it's the right passenger arriving at the right time at the right vertiport, and off they go. We are also testing the back-of-house operations room and vertiport systems. Our CTO is somewhere around. You can go talk to him about the different systems that we're putting in to be able to monitor vertiports effectively, but also make sure that we're able to operate the aircraft as safely and efficiently as possible through resource management, scheduling system, situational awareness, make sure that the vertiport is happy with us being at the airport, so communicating with the tower, with existing traffic, and also over time trying to convert into remote operations. So as we scale our operations in various markets, we're hoping to reduce the number of staff present at individual sites and sort of centralize some of the functions in our control centers. I'll play a quick video of the launch event that we did in November 2022. Welcome to the Skyports vertiport at Pontoise Gourmet Airfield in Paris. This is Europe's first fully integrated vertiport testbed, which is designed to test the entire value chain of advanced air mobility technologies.
This is a culmination of a project we've been doing with ADP since 2019. They invested in Skyports very early on, one of our first investors, and it allows us to get exposure to an airport company which has got a global reach, one of the biggest airport companies in the world. And to be able to build a vertiport airside at an operational airport is great for Skyports and ADP. It allows us to do operational testing in a live environment. We can test our technology, make sure it operates with existing aviation traffic. And we can test our people processes and do lots of things behind the scenes that we want to do ahead of our global expansion. And it's a natural step on the journey to permanent commercial operations.
As passengers enter the vertiport terminal, they will go through a check-in process where we verify their identity, and then they proceed to the lobby where passengers can wait before their departure. The entire passenger journey needs to be as quick and smooth as possible so that we minimize the dwell time and the overall passenger journey from their origin to their destination. A couple of minutes before the flight, passengers will be asked to start boarding. The gate will verify their identity and confirm that they are designated to their departing flight, and then they will be escorted by a member of staff to the aircraft before they do their pre-departure briefing and takeoff.
This vertiport, whilst on French soil, is a great testing environment for us to translate those learnings to other environments around the world. As we move towards our first operational cities, many of which will be with Group ADP, we can take these learnings, the technology we've got here, and use best-in-class practices in other environments around the world.
Great. So leading on to the next point, and why do we do this? Or why do we spend huge amounts of money, effort, time in building test beds? And the answer is to be ready for permanent operations. It's to build a test bed is one thing, but to actually build permanent operations in a city with huge number of passengers is a completely different ballgame, and it then requires coordination of not only the private industry but mainly from government stakeholders. And whilst there's a number of cities around the world that are sort of making huge strides in launching permanent operations, I firmly believe that Dubai has all the right ingredients and the right building blocks in place to be able to be the first city in the world with urban vertiports, urban operations. I think Paris and Group ADP and partners have done amazing work in preparing existing assets, some new assets, but mainly existing assets for operations in 2024. I think in Dubai, we will see the first network of greenfield vertiports. And it's for a number of reasons. Some of them are listed on the slides. It takes the 4 key building blocks to be able to execute a project successfully, particularly on the infrastructure side. First one is government buy-in and coordination. As Duncan said, in certain parts of the world that is easier than in others. Dubai, over the past 3-4 years, have been working to set up government structures such that are able to facilitate both the aircraft certification, operations, but also infrastructure, airspace management, etc. Regulatory framework is of course key, both on the aircraft side, but also on infrastructure side. The GCAA, as of March 2023, became the first civil aviation authority to introduce vertiport regulations. So in Dubai, when you come, you can actually, you have published regulations to build vertiports. You need a network of feasible sites. It's been mentioned it's super difficult to do in existing cities like London, Paris, just given the built environment. Not every single roof, even of multi-story car parks, works. There's a huge amount of considerations that you have to go through to actually understand whether that site works and whether it's worthwhile taking the risk to go and build it. And lastly, robust business case and demand. There's a lot of speculative projects around the world, which I would say with questionable demand. And when it comes to signing definitive agreements, you really want to be sure that you can put forward a solid demand and business case to your investors, but also to the cities, which expel a huge amount of effort to make it happen. So in Dubai, all 4 are in place. In February 2023, we got a sign-off from His Highness Sheikh Mohammed for the vertiport designs. We've been working with the RTA over the past 18 months to design a partnership which is able to deliver on that vision. It's broadly split into 3 buckets: infrastructure, regulatory oversight, and sort of governmental relations, and aircraft production and operations. Joby is one of the potential partners. And over the next 2 to 3 years, we're going to start implementing the vision that His Highness Sheikh Mohammed set. It is initially connecting 4 locations across Dubai. The first route will most likely be from Dubai International to Palm Jumeirah, delivering exceptional time saving to anyone who travels back and forth on the ground. And over time, we'll be able to scale this network not only within Dubai, but also across other Emirates and create a really nationwide, Emirates-wide advanced air mobility network. I think that's the last slide. So we've got 6-7 minutes for questions.
We have. Is there a password?
Sure.
Lovely. All right. I'm going to ask, you're going to have to answer. It's easy. There are an increasing number of infrastructure players in the market. How do you work together, and why do you believe your business model will succeed?
Okay, Kevin, you can add. So our business model is fairly similar to existing airports. So we're not trying to reinvent the wheel. We're trying to use existing precedent, existing partnership structures that work for the airline industry, and they might change over, as the industry scales. We might develop more suitable business models for this industry, but to start with, we're trying to use existing frameworks and business models that are easier to explain and people understand them. So most of our revenues, or our revenue, split into 2 buckets: aeronautical and non-aeronautical revenue. The ultimate goal is to offer as cheap landing fees as possible, as that's ultimately what makes this industry feasible, being able to offer affordable flights.
Yeah, in terms of the number of players in the market, I think I think we'll see consolidation over time. I think we'll see consolidation amongst the OEMs. I think we'll see consolidation amongst the infrastructure providers. I'm super excited. People like Ferrovial are in the industry, like Group ADP are in the industry. They are huge balance sheets with great credibility. It's incredibly hard to deliver aviation infrastructure, and I don't think everybody is going to be able to do it. So it needs more than one player. It is not a winner-takes-all market, but we will see some consolidation. I'm going to go now to an interesting question. What were your mistakes in Singapore?
The roof leaked, so we designed the gutters too small for Singaporean weather. Now, the biggest mistakes in Singapore were focusing too much on the design of the terminal. I think that's a huge cost, unnecessary cost that doesn't really support or improve the operations, doesn't improve safety. It just really costs money, and it can look appealing, but now we're in a stage where we need to make things happen. We need to be extremely rational with making with sort of spending money, and so as you'll see with a lot of our designs post Singapore, they're a lot less funky and more focused on operational efficiency and safety.
Yeah, I think that's exactly right. We've started from the point of design. You should end with the point of design. You start with the point of regulations, safety, efficiency. Design of the terminal is, like I said earlier, near irrelevant. So we probably got the order the wrong way around. In a way, you kind of need that for excitement of the customer, excitement of the press. But actually, from a functional basis, you've got to start operationally and then work back to design. Question about, we've got 3 minutes left. Where is investment in the AAM infrastructure going to come from? I'll take that one. It's a good question. It's going to come from a bunch of places. It's going to, in some places, come from governments, either through hard cash or through concessions in real estate, concessions in electrification, other forms of public money contribution, which may not be hard dollars, but could be assets that governments own. Again, centrally controlled governments who tend to own a lot of their real estate, a lot of their national infrastructure, they can start unlocking some of these and adding multimodality into some existing transportation infrastructure, which is a great opportunity. So governments, and it's going to come from the private sector as well. If we look at our own cap table, we've got some very big infrastructure funds in there, the likes of Ardian, a huge French infrastructure fund, Group ADP, Deutsche Bahn, the Goodman Group, Kanematsu, ST Engineering. I think we added up the balance sheets of our existing shareholders, and there's about $250 billion under management, but just between them. So there is already existing capital in there. I think we'll also see new players coming in, sovereign wealth funds. There is a journey to go on here from being venture-style capital to being pure infrastructure capital. Until the industry has momentum and defined revenue streams, we won't get those very big, lower cost of capital infrastructure funds making material capital investments. But we're on that journey, and that will ramp up as the ecosystem builds. What we won't see, certainly for the first 3, 4, 5 years, is debt. What we will see when those revenue streams become more defined is significant amounts of debt, as you see in existing aviation assets around the world. We've probably got time for one more question. What are some of the other lessons we've learned through some of our projects?
I'll start with Pontoise testbed. I think the big lesson there is that technology plays a bigger part than we originally thought. It will play incredibly important role in making sure that the coordination across the entire ecosystem it works like a clockwork, because it has to. You can't have these aircraft going in a hold pattern for half an hour. They need to come in at the scheduled time, and the vertiports need to be ready to receive them. And so I think technology, the role of technology in what we do. What else? It's more expensive than all of your sort of projections. I think every time we budget something, we just double it, especially in aviation. Whenever there's regulations involved, whenever there's hard infrastructure involved, it's super expensive.
I think one of the learning that it's become increasingly clear to us over the course of the years we've been doing this. People aren't interested in airports. You know, we're an airport company, a vertiport company. We get super focused and excited by vertiports. I hate airports. I like airports if they're convenient. I don't like the airport experience. I don't ever choose a flight because it goes from a particular airport. This industry and the success of this industry and all of the OEMs and everybody that's part of this industry is a function of how convenient we can make it to move passengers and goods around cities and between cities. If we can locate vertiports in exactly the right places, if we can save people time, if we can save cost, this industry will be a success. If all we're doing is recreating the existing airport experience, we won't do that.